Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. A special guest this week, none other than basically the host of New England Fan Fest for many years now. Of course, she's a singer, songwriter, and of course, she's also a former ring announcer herself in the wrestling world. Please welcome Deana Rae to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here, and going to take a nice little deep dive into your career and all things Deana Rae. So looking forward to this.
Same.
So let's rewind all the way to the beginning. You know, growing up as a kid, when did you first discover pro wrestling? On the other side of that, what were some of your hobbies and who were some of your favorite pro wrestlers once you did discover it?
Absolutely. So I was a very casual wrestling fan. I discovered it, I think, like most kids, on Saturday morning TV. And I watched it as, casually. And I came to really enjoy the female wrestlers, China being one of them. But my favorite was Kurt Angle. I loved his whole persona and just the all American kind of guy and whatnot. And I was really drawn to that. So that's kind of what started, I guess, my interest in wrestling.
Nice. Awesome. And what were some of your hobbies growing up as a kid?
Well, music for one, but I was also a dancer and a cheerleader. So I danced from age 3 all the way through college, as well as cheered. So I had about 12 years of competitive cheer in there as well. So that took up the majority of my time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Something like that. I mean, it's got a pretty intense schedule at times, so it takes
For
a lot
sure.
of practice.
Yep.
Awesome. So, at what point did you realize, okay, you know what, wrestling might be something that I want to kind of dabble in here, something that I want to get involved in myself? And obviously, you eventually became a ring announcer locally here in the New England scene. So, when did you make that decision, and how did you get your foot in the door? Training, any type of story you have with that.
Absolutely. So I basically I'm going to say, married into it. So my husband and his family obviously have been very involved in wrestling. I know we're probably going to get into that a little bit later, but I didn't really have a choice. It was part of our family. It was part of my husband's hobbies and whatnot. So I kind of tagged along. Didn't really. Again, I was just a casual fan for most of it. But my brother-in-law is Dan Gore, necromancer, and he wrestles locally here and was also a promoter for Battlefront Pro Wrestling. And before that, I was just kind of watching him in the ring and be like, oh, this is kind of cool, like neat. And then I ended up doing his makeup because he had, the full face paint.
Yep.
So I started getting in there, going, behind the scenes and kind of understanding the back end of how things worked in wrestling, which was super fascinating. I have a business background, so I was like, this is kind of neat to see behind the curtain and how everything kind of goes, and it really interested me. And then lo and behold, I was doing makeup for my brother-in-law, and he was actually working, I believe, for Dick Blake at the time with New Age Old Time Wrestling. That's what it was called at the time. And they needed a ring announcer. And I had some background in public speaking, and obviously being a cheerleader and a dancer, the limelight wasn't wasn't anything they shied away from by any means. So I said, you know what? I think I might be able to do something like this. It might be fun. So I, threw my hat in the ring, so to speak. And, Dick gave me a chance and took a shot. And then he's like, oh yeah, see what you can do. Why not? And it just kind of stuck.
So, what memories do you have from that new age old time wrestling? That very first event. Do you remember some of the superstars that you ring announced? Do you remember just your experiences and feeling that crowd interaction for the first time?
Yeah, I was so nervous. I had no clue what I was doing. I thought, oh, I just have to read a cue card. It's fine. No big deal. Not realizing, oh my goodness, I actually need to learn everything there is to know about wrestling. And I learned that very quickly during my first experience. But it was a lot of the local talent that still is around, or some of them have retired, but for instance, I had my brother-in-law was announcing him and his tag team partner at the time, and a lot of like I said, the local talent that you see around here, and then a lot of talent out of New York as well. But it was such a blur
Yeah.
for me. Like thinking back to that day, it was surreal to have that experience. And once I did it one time, I was like, you know what? I love the rush. I love the adrenaline that comes from it, and I love to be a part of something bigger, but just like kind of a small piece. I'm not a big time in actually getting in the ring and all that stuff, but just a little tiny bit, and I loved
Yeah.
that.
And how was their feedback in regards to how you did that night?
Um, it was constructive. It was a great starting point for me, and I've learned so much since then. Just about projecting, about the business itself, about how and what to do when things don't go as the script says, because it's live entertainment. You never know what's going to happen, and that's really helped me to think on my feet and be able to react and respond when things don't happen quite as they are planned.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you and I have that in common. I was a ring announcer in New England for 10 years, and my debut it kind of fell into my lap really back in 1998. It was at the Barton Street Community Center for UCW. This was in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And the ring announcer didn't show up, and I was there filming the show. So they're like, Joe, you kind of do the commentary on the camera
Mhm.
sometimes for your studio. You do interviews. Would you like to ring announce? And I always had a passion for it, but I never knew how to go about getting into it. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. Not knowing what I was getting into at first, because just like you, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely, I'll do that. Yeah, I did that with my wrestling figures when I was a kid. So yeah, I can do that. It's
Sure,
not.
why
So I do it. I realized that the ring announcer that didn't show up was also the sound guy. So I have no sound system, no microphone. So I'm making my debut and I have to speak up. Luckily, very small place. There were probably 30 people in the crowd. Great place to get your first show in under your belt and just try to figure things out. Um, but yeah, just kind of fell in love with it and went from there. And it's always great to speak to a fellow New England, specifically ring announcer, over the years. So that is
not?
pretty awesome. And you suck with it. A lot of people, if they're nervous or if maybe they didn't do as well as they wanted to that first time, they would just leave right away in some instances, but you
Mhm.
stuck with it. You ring announced for several promotions, and you went on to do obviously New England Fan Fest and the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and many projects in between. So it's great that you've stuck with it, and you can see, that you've really come a long way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
likewise, it's so exciting to be able to have spend some time with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And your ring announcing style, what would you say was your ring announcing style when you used to do the ring announcing? Did anybody in particular influence you from television? Did you try to craft it, or was it kind of all your own style?
I think it was a conglomeration of everything from the kind of cheer background, kind of being able to project and really, get some teeth into the announcing, but also Lillian Garcia being the singer, ring announcer. She definitely was one of my inspiration, I guess you would say, as I kind of made my way through learning how to do this.
Right. So 2024 New England Fan Fest 9.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get an opportunity to speak with Lillian? She was one of the guests there.
I unfortunately wasn't able to interview her, but I was able to at least stop by and say hello, which was
Oh, good.
amazing. It was such a great opportunity.
Awesome. Awesome. And I remember the year after that, you did get to interview Kurt Angle, who you mentioned was
Yes.
one of your favorites. So that's great. You got to meet your childhood heroes when it comes to the wrestling world. So
For sure. And I have to say, I don't normally like fangirl, but I was so, oh my gosh, like inside, obviously I kept it cool, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is Kurt Angle. And I
not
don't
many
usually
people
get
get
like
that
that, but I was.
opportunity.
I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And not a lot of people get that opportunity to interview somebody like Kurt Angle.
Mm-mm.
What was that experience like for you, and how was he? Was he, very accommodating, or?
He was so gracious, and he spent a lot of time considering that everything was so compressed, and I got him right before he was about to leave and whatnot. But he was super gracious and very sweet, answered all the questions, and kind of he was so humble, and everything that you would want to when you meet your idol to have. And he was very, very gracious, and I'm very thankful, Joe, for the opportunity to be able to have had that experience.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, you know, immediately, when I put together these fan fests, I kind of look at different things online. If I'm looking for maybe somebody new to do interviews or somebody new to do this or that, and I came across you when you were still actively ring announcing, and I forgot which promotion it was for, but I saw a couple videos online, and I was like, you know what, she would be the perfect fit for what we're doing here, and it's got to be the right person. It's got to be somebody that comes off professional. I'm very picky with the how everything looks and how everything comes together, and yeah, no, it's been awesome. I mean, you've done an awesome job each and every year, and yeah, we made the right choice, right?
Oh, thank you. Well,
Absolutely.
I'm flattered that you did.
Yeah. Now, you talked about your husband. For those that don't know, Ray Gore, the brother of the necromancer that we spoke about, Dan Gore. So Ray Gore and Dan, both long, childhood wrestling fans since they've been little, and huge collectors. So they've been big into the collecting world. Love the autographs. They've been collecting them for many years since the 80s or 90s. So um, once you started to realize what was going on here, you're like, man, Ray really likes pro wrestling. As you first met him, what was your first, I guess, thought, process when you saw all the collectibles he had and all the autographs and that sort of thing?
um, wow. that was that was my first impression. The collection that he had was just absolutely insane. He had this small room when we met. Of course, this was decades ago. It had this little tiny room in his mom's house, and we were both so young, and all the pictures up, and I like literally there was no room left on the wall. But these were amazing autographs from people who I knew, but again, casual wrestling fan at the time. And I was like, wow, you got all, and he's like, yeah, I got all of these myself. And then he was showing me like the ring worn apparel and just all of this really niche, incredible, um, you know, products. And I was just like, this is incredible. And he had such a passion for it. And I knew at that point, I'm like, okay, this is something that he absolutely loves. And I'm like, and I need to love it too. And I do.
Awesome. Now, was there ever a point where you're kind of adding something in the mix as well? Maybe you have a collectible of your own, where something that you have on display, or obviously, you probably don't share the exact passion that Ray has had all these years, and you, like you said, you were loosely involved growing up as a kid as far as a fan goes. But do you have any pieces that you have collected over the years?
So the only pieces that I actually do have on display are the New England Fan Fest posters.
Oh, nice.
So I have those, and because those are just a little piece, which is something super sentimental for me, and was able to obviously get some really nice signatures on those from those who I've met and the people who have actually interviewed, which is amazing. So love that. And on my own personal collecting side, I do have a signed Dave Matthews guitar, and a couple, and Dave and Ray had some Dave Matthews stuff before we met, and we're very much Dave Matthews fans. So we're excited
Nice.
to have those.
I'm a big Dave Matthews fan myself, so that's awesome. That's
Nice.
very cool.
Nice.
Very nice. So, voiceover narration, custom jingles, you're available for all of this. Why don't you give us some of the history of some of the stuff you've done with that?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I've done has been more on the corporate side. So I've done, like, hi, thank you for calling so and so, and doing the answering service and things like that. I've done a few jingles for again on the corporate side, as well as I have done some custom ring entry music as well, which was I did a couple of years ago when I was more so into the ring announcing itself. So yeah, got a little bit of experience in that, and it's always just so fun.
Yeah. Now, did Ray and Dan ever kind of take you under your wing and was just like, listen, you're gonna learn wrestling and show you the old tapes, 80s, 90s. So you've seen all the old stuff by this point?
Yes, yes, we were. Ray was so gracious in bringing me up and telling me all the stuff, trying to, instill in me all the different lingo. And I would ask. I was just like, what does this mean? How does this work? Like, if they count out, like, what do I do? What should I say? And he was so instrumental. And he would always, when we were at least at the Battlefront shows, he would always sit next to me. He did the bell. And if I wasn't quite sure what to do, he'd nudge me and be like, say this. Like, okay. So he was such a crutch for me. And I would not have been able to do it without him.
Awesome. So you said you started with the New Age Old Time Wrestling. Obviously, you moved on to Battlefront Pro Wrestling Extreme.
Mhm.
Um, any specific memories from that promotion during your time there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many incredible memories. The I think most incredible match that I was able to announce was the barbed wire match that they had between let's see, Len Oddity and Dirtbag Dan, and that was one of the most incredible um, shows of wrestling that I've ever seen. So that was amazing to have had a front row seat and to be able to announce that. And um, what people may not know is I was actually did a lot behind the scenes at Battlefront. Those who were in the promotion knew, but I did all the back end graphics, the uh, posters, the match cards, because I have a background in graphic design for as my profession, and so I did all of that. I videoed all the promos, edited all the promos, did all of kind of like that back end work, which I actually love. That's one of my passions, and I was able to really be able to show my creative spark in that way and be able to help the promotion to succeed and build their brand as they kind of progressed in their popularity.
Very nice. Awesome. So, backstage correspondent is something you
Mhm.
did as well as ring announcing. You've done that in multiple locations as well, and obviously you do that at New England Fan Fest. Um, if you could kind of let the fans know, when it comes specifically to New England Fan Fest, who have you ring announced over the years? Because you've been there a few years now. If you could throw out some names, maybe as many as you could think of, and who were some of the best interactions, with the stars.
Absolutely. So, going back to my days at Beyond Wrestling, which is kind of where I got my start in the backstage interviews, that I was able to work with Orange Cassidy, Joey Janela, Chris Statlander, Layla Hirsch, Mark Sterling, VSK, Anthony Green, Shotzi, um, Jordan Grace, Bear Country. Gosh, Willow Nightingale, Alex Reynolds, John Silver, all of them as they were kind of coming up before, they exploded, which was amazing, and was able to actually have a lot of friendships there, which is so nice. And then launching me into the New England Fan Fest, which was just mind blowing. I mean, I got to interview Abdullah the Butcher.
Right.
Like, that was amazing, as well as had a great experience this past Fan Fest with the Mountie. We had a great little interaction there. Sergeant Slaughter, oh my goodness, Kurt Angle, obviously, and then a lot of the local talent as well. That I was very excited to see some people who I hadn't seen in a long time, like for instance Mark Sterling. We met up in the hallway, and I was like, oh my goodness, it was so, kind of like that family reunion type thing. But I mean, the list goes on and on, Joe. There's so many people
Yeah.
who I've had the opportunity to interact with, and largely because of New England Fan Fest. So it's just an amazing experience.
Awesome. And when you flip the page from New England Fan Fest to New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, why don't you
Mhm.
tell us about that experience? Because you've also been the correspondent there. You've been doing the red carpet interviews, and you've been doing that for a few years now as well. So tell us what that experience has been like, and how the Hall of Fame, in your opinion, differentiates from the Fan Fest.
That's such a great question. The Hall of Fame is just so special. It is a night of gratitude. It's a night of appreciation, and I think it truly shows. It's I believe that the Fan Fest is really fan focused, which is amazing, but the Hall of Fame is talent focused, and it really is a way to, I'm going to say, let those who you work with know how much you appreciate what they do in the ring, outside of the ring, and all of that. And that really shows through, especially in those red carpet interviews and all the interviews that I'm able to do. And it's amazing to, one, be able to hear the stories. I get a little bit more time, I think, sometimes, because at the Hall of Fame, there's not necessarily as many fans that are trying to get in there. You don't want to obviously take the time away from the fans, but at the Hall of Fame, we're really able to get some in-depth interviews, as well as those red carpet kind of quick shots are always fun. You never know what's going to happen on the red carpet, which is nice. And one of my favorite experiences that I've had at the Hall of Fame was the ability or the opportunity to induct Mike McGurk. That was just mind blowing to me. She was such an amazing trailblazer for everybody, including myself, in the industry, and to be able to have that opportunity, especially, and be able to interact with her in that way, was one of my top highlights of my career.
And Mike McGurk, obviously the first ever female ring announcer and the first ever female commentator as well. So
Yes.
double whammy right there. And Mike McGurk, like you said, I mean, just one of the nicest in the business, one of the nicest that you could talk to. She's so
Absolutely.
giving in her advice and her conversation and her time, and a true pleasure to work with. So
Hmm.
somebody I always wanted to work with, and our schedules never just they always clashed.
Hmm.
So it finally was able to happen, 2 years ago. So that was fantastic having Mike there in person, and I think she felt the love too because a lot of people were just
Yes.
really excited to see her. So
Yeah, I completely agree.
yeah, it was a special time in the WWF. I hear her voice, and not everybody does this, but when I hear her voice, it brings me exactly to that very time period, 91,
Mhm.
1990, somewhere around there. Howard Finkel would obviously be doing the big pay-per-views and that sort of thing, but you'd hear her voice on a lot of the television shows and especially Coliseum Home Video, which I was a big fan of. So you rent those tapes, and she was often the ring announcer for many of those tours. So, to hear that voice, and she was also the first female ring announcer in a video game.
Yes.
Yeah, she was in that as well. So I have those memories as well. So yeah, just a great person all the way around.
100%.
I'm glad you were able to have that opportunity with her because you could tell she really appreciated it too.
Yes, as did I. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk about Beyond Wrestling. New Age Old Time Wrestling. You went to Battlefront Pro Wrestling Extreme. Now Beyond Wrestling. This is another level. Brings it to the next level. Brings it to really the highest level for New England wrestling.
Yeah.
They have a huge presence online, on YouTube, and they always have great crowds. They always bring in great talent, not necessarily superstars from the world of wrestling, but they'll bring in top independent talent from all different, areas. And that's what's exciting for the fans to see, because you don't see a lot of those talents normally in this area. So what was that experience like? Kind of walk us through your whole Beyond experience. How many shows would you say you ring announced for them? How long were you there?
Yeah, so I was with Beyond Wrestling, Uncharted Territory for 2 seasons. And I was primarily their backstage correspondent. So I would do the backstage interviews as well. And I kind of pushed all of that stuff out via social media, which was awesome, great learning experience as well. And like you said, I was able to work with so many different people because they had different talent in every single week. It was really cool for me to understand the back end of an actual live television show, which I had never been able to experience before. And to be a part of that was amazing. So, a couple of shows in, they had me kind of worked me into an angle where I was actually announcing the Discovery Gauntlet, which was kind of this round robin style event that you'd be able to see all the up and coming talent that was coming in, and it was just a really cool little segment, and it was my first experience to be able to actually be on live TV, and that was just surreal and really made me up my game for sure. Through that experience, they offered me an opportunity to ring announce for um, the Women's Wrestling Revolution, which I was able to do one show for them, which was awesome. I'm such a proponent for women, especially in wrestling, and to be able to be on an all women's card was just so cool. And I got to meet so many amazing people through that experience. And I think the ultimate epitome for me was being able to have the experience of singing the national anthem at American Rana 2019 at Foxwoods. So there's about 1,500 people in the arena, and I had thousands online, which was just mind blowing. And that was actually, I did that the night before I had done my actual first show with my band. So that was really, that weekend was just me kind of, that was my entrance into music. So I
Yeah.
was very excited for that opportunity as well.
And was there a little piece of something like what would you say is your greatest takeaway from each of those three promotions? Is there anything in particular that you kind of took from each one to kind of
Mhm.
better yourself?
You know, I I don't know if there's necessarily specific things from each one, but I think in some there's like in summary, I've learned to not take myself too seriously, that things won't go as planned. You just have to do your best to be prepared for them. And then I think from a growth perspective, Beyond pushed me the most to be on my game, to be able to think on my feet, and really, I think, made an impact on my communication and how I carried myself thereafter. It was such a humbling experience.
What would you say is the greatest piece of advice that you've received throughout your career?
Greatest piece of advice. I think came from Gangrel himself.
Man.
And he always says, he's like, you're either all in or you're all out. And I've kind of carried that with me. I was like, yeah, if you're going to do something, do it 110%. Like, don't, don't halfway it.
Right.
just, just you have to be all in. Either if you don't, then don't do it at all. And that's what I've carried with me.
Funny Gangrel story that obviously you were there for, the chicken tender incident. I feel like there's no other opportunity to bring this up, so now is the best time. And we're in the restaurant, New England Fan Fest. Gangrel comes in. You guys are about to take your seat and enjoy some dinner. I'm already in there with a few people. Gangrel just sees from afar the plate of buffalo chicken tenders. He has to come over and comment and see, just admire them. And, and he really wants them. He's looking at my tenders and he's like, you know what? I'm going to get that. That's what I'm going to get. And he went and sat down with you guys, probably looked through the menu or whatever, was kind of thinking about it. He came back over, looked at the tenders again. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna get those tenders. And it was on the mind. So he orders the tenders and he gets them, and they're a quarter of the size. And he gets like probably two or three less tenders than I had on my plate. And it was just such a funny situation. I felt so bad because I was like, oh, you got to get these. They're so good. And he's like, they look amazing. And then he gets these little rinky dink things, and there's just a handful of them. And to this day, I'll still send him a message every once in a while, busting his balls about the chicken tenders. So,
Rightfully so.
yeah, I think so. But had to get that
Oh,
chicken
love that.
tender story out there for the fans, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
Yeah. So, the ring announcing aspect, obviously, you kind of put that to the side. When did you decide, maybe I'm not going to continue on with the ring announcing, but I'll try out some different ventures?
Mhm. Yeah, that was um, in the midst of COVID that happened. There was a lot going on in the wrestling world at that time. There was a lot going on in the world at that time. Everything was super chaotic. And it was kind of fortuitous. Shortly thereafter, I'd actually lost my mom, so it was a very very disruptive time, kind of in my life. And I thought, you know what, we need to hang up that chapter for at least a little while and focus on something different, just for a change. So that's kind of when I really dove in headfirst with the music, and I'm really happy that I did. I do miss ring announcing that experience, but I do get my little time each fan fest, so that kind of brings me back, and that's always my favorite experience anyway. So
Best of both worlds right there. You get to experience them both. Let's
yeah.
talk about your music, the Jukebox Renegades. Tell the fans what it's all about. Um, you know, let's hear it.
Thank you. So yeah, we I'm the lead singer and one of the guitarists for a band called Jukebox Renegades. We are a five-piece electric party band. We started out as a very different band doing all acoustic, and we've just transformed. We've had a couple of members come and go through some moves that they've made in their lives. So we have an amazing cast of I'm going to say cast of characters because that's what we are. There's no getting around that. But we just have so much fun. We do covers from anything from we've covered the Beatles all the way through Ozzy and Britney Spears and Billie Eilish and literally everything in between, all genres, all decades. And we kind of put our own little spin on it. We do a lot of mashups and fun things. And the guys are always keeping me on my toes. They're more rockers. So they'll say, hey, let's do, Alice in Chains. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's do Taylor Swift. And then we, merge them together and we call it, we jukeboxify it. That's what we call it.
Awesome. I've never gotten to see you guys live, but I've seen some of your stuff online, and you guys do an awesome job. So
Thank
it's
you.
pretty cool. Yeah, good to see. And how long have you been doing that part of your career so far?
Yeah, so we actually started slowly back in 2019, um, and I've been with Jukebox the whole time. So that's 6 years in the making. And then a couple years ago, I also started doing solos and have been doing kind of my own little solo thing as well, which has been different and enjoyable. So yeah, just had an interesting journey, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Awesome. When it comes to venues, what are some of your favorite venues that you've performed in as a ring announcer? And then on the other side of things, I see you're constantly going to new spots for the music. Maybe your favorite place to perform.
Sure. So definitely my favorite place for ring announcing was the experience that I had at Foxwoods. That was really great at American Rana. And also, I have to say, with Beyond Electric Haze, there's something really cool about the vibe in that place. So that was definitely a great experience there. Um, as far as music, there is a venue in Chicopee by the name of View Street Tavern, and that's always one of my favorite places to play with the full band. And then there is this little VFW in Hamden, Massachusetts, and it's just this cutest little like hole in the wall place, and I absolutely adore that place. So if you ever have a chance, stop down there. It's a great little place.
Now, for fans that want to follow you, for maybe somebody that wants to book you guys for a special occasion, special event, how can they do so? Let's hear your website, social media. Let's hear all that.
Thank you. So yeah, well, you can find us on social media at Jukebox Renegades. You can also contact me on social media at Miss Deana Rae. And our website is, or my website, our website is deana-ray.com.
Awesome. And how did that come about? The name Jukebox Renegades. How did you get to that point? What was kind of the creative process with that?
Sure. So um, Jukebox Renegades started as I was just going to be a fill-in for one gig. They had a totally different band, and they said, "Oh, we just need one gig. The singer can't do it. Can you just fill in?" I said, sure, no problem. So I did, and we're like, well, they don't want to use like whatever their name was. We're like, oh, we just want to do something a little different. And at the time, we had the song "Jukebox Heroes" on on the set list. And we're like, oh, we'll be Jukebox Heroes. And I was like, okay, but what about Jukebox Renegades? I'm like, that just has a cooler ring to it. And they're like, that's great. And is actually a brainchild of my husband's. He came up with the whole renegade thing, and I was like, yeah, that sounds way better. So that's how it came about.
Nice. And do you and your husband still watch the current product at all with wrestling, WWE or AEW or anything?
We don't watch it as often as we used to be fully transparent. But I think with the advent of just how everything is on social media now, I think we're obviously still consuming it in our feeds. And I know that that Ray certainly is a fan of watching all the old stuff. Going on YouTube and finding, oh, I remember this certain match. Let me see if I can find it. Or I remember I was ringside at this match. Let me see if I can find, me and my brother when we were young and whatnot. So he enjoys doing that, and I always will, be peeking over.
Yeah, yeah. And have you ever attended any live events, any WWE shows or AEW?
Yeah, so I did attend in Springfield. There was a WWE show, but that was long before I had ever actually engaged in being a part of wrestling. So I don't recall quite any big things about it, but I do remember actually going. And the biggest thing that I remember, I was like, wow, the ring is so small. It looks so much bigger on TV. And
Yeah.
I just like that's the thought that I had because, of course, casual fan at the time. So
Let's talk about Mount Rushmore a little bit. There's different ways to look at a Mount Rushmore. Obviously, it could be your four personal favorites, could be most influential wrestlers, the people who made the biggest impact or made the most money. You could look at it any way you'd like to. But let's kind of play a little game where let's hear your Mount Rushmore for maybe New England wrestling, and it could be any era, and then Mount Rushmore for, the big time on television, any era. I
Hmm.
guess we'll start with New England.
What a great question, Joe. Oh, goodness.
I know I'm putting you on the spot here with this one.
So on the spot. So on the spot. So I think for New England wrestling in particular, um, one person that actually comes to mind is Kowalski.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and let's see, if we think about um, I'm actually going to say Frank Kirsnowski, which
Oh
is
yeah,
which is interesting, but
fellow ring
from
announcer.
yeah, but from my perspective as a ring announcer, um, and then I'm going to say from a more modern perspective, um, I might actually put I'm going to say actually Anthony Green on there, which
Nice.
is, he's he's super humble, great guy, but also I think he's done a lot for the product, and he actually does a lot behind the scenes with a lot of different promotions that a lot of people don't quite know, and he's had a lot of contributions there.
Nice. And how about when it comes to the other side for the, WWE or any era of WWF, WCW, whatever it may be? Maybe
Hmm.
top four wrestling stars in the history, in your opinion.
Well, for me, being a female, mine would be all female.
Absolutely.
Because we need a female Mount Rushmore.
Right?
um, Obviously, Moolah would be on there. Um, I would actually, honestly, I would put Luna.
Luna Vachon, one of the greats.
Yes, yeah, I would put Luna up there for many reasons, for personal reasons as well. But just she contributed a lot. The and then from a regional standpoint, or actually no, we already did regional. So I would also put on there Mike McGurk
Nice.
because she was a trailblazer, and maybe controversial, but I would also actually put China on there.
Nice. All great names. And that's the thing when it comes to Mount Rushmore, it's your Mount Rushmore. You can pick any aspect and look at it any way. So that's fantastic. So, kind of going back to music a little bit, you taught yourself how to play the piano. Why don't you tell us about how hard that process was? And yeah, kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Um, I have always been into music since I was a very young age. My mom played the organ, so I'd always kind of sit there on the chair like this and just watch and see what she was doing. And I could see her feet going, I could see her hands going. I didn't quite know what she was doing, but it sounded great. And that kind of perked my interest. So as I got into school and into music classes, they teach you just the basics of here's the notes and like here's what they mean is E A B. I'm like, okay, and I figured it out, and I'm like, okay, and I just kind of dabbled, and I'm like, I figured out where the keys were on the keyboard and all that kind of stuff, and then dropped it for a while. And then my cousin, um, oh, okay, and then my cousin came to me and he's like, hey, you want to, get together, do some singing and whatnot? I was like, yeah, sure. And at that time, I had actually my dad found a guitar in a old storage unit. And he's like, hey, I got a guitar for you. Learn how to play it. I'm like, okay. And there's a little book, and there's like a first grader's book. It had like all the first graders like writing in it. And I was like, all right, cool. I can just learn from this. So I started literally like Mary Had a Little Lamb on the guitar and learned kind of the chords and figured it out. And then when I was with my cousin, he was just like, he's a very accomplished guitarist. He's like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't play guitar. He's like, why don't you just play piano? And he is very accomplished in music. He's like, just do this. And he started like playing it, and I understood like the guitar tabs. So I literally learned by watching him on what he was doing on the guitar, kind of knowing a little bit about the piano, and it just kind of like puzzle pieces together, and I just kind of hacked my way through it and figured it out. I'm definitely not any sort of great guitarist or pianist, but I learned my way through it, and I can do what I can.
Nice. And do you have a warm up routine? You know, when you're getting ready for a gig and you're about to go out there, or even if it's days leading up to the show, is there something in particular that you do to prepare?
Yeah, I practice a lot. Um, but I do have a small like warm up gig routine that I've always done. I was part of like musical theater and stuff when I was in high school, so it's literally the one that I've learned back in high school, and I just continually do it just to warm up my voice. And when I have it recorded on my phone, so I'll kind of go out into my car, sit there by myself, and just kind of listen and warm up my voice a little bit. And I always have my tea with me. If you go to any gigs, you'll see me. I have like a thermos. And I have my own little key.
Nice.
So yeah.
So you're on the road, you're either going to a music gig or some type of wrestling related event. Are there any special food spots? Are you a foodie? Is there something like, oh, we're going to this town, we have to stop there?
So yes, um, back in when we were doing, we were especially going to Beyond. I would go into work really early, like 6 a.m., work like 6 to 3, leave, and I worked in Hartford, so I would drive from, Springfield to Hartford, back to Springfield, pick up Ray, get my makeup on real quick, and we'd get in the car, and we'd hop onto the turnpike, and before we did, we always stopped at McDonald's, and I'd get a chicken nugget, and we'd eat my chicken nuggets as we were driving, to Beyond, to Wester, not Westover, to West Worcester, and then drive home and whatnot. I can no longer have McDonald's chicken nuggets. So I have upgraded to Chick-fil-A, the grilled
Okay.
nuggets. Yeah. So I still love my nuggets.
Nice. Very nice. Now, when it comes to advice, what advice do you have for somebody that's maybe just looking to become a ring announcer or a musician, just getting into the industry as a whole? What advice do you have for that person?
Do it. Just do it. Um, there's going to be times when you're super scared. There's going to be times when you're going to fall, literally and figuratively. And it's so important to just get back up, dust yourself off, and try it again. And the more and more that you do it, the easier that it will become, and the more fluid and the more confidence you're going to gain in yourself. Everyone has to start somewhere, so why not now?
Yeah. Now, when it comes to the interviews that you've done, whether it be at FanFest, whether it be at any of the independent promotions, what would you say are your top 3 interviews? Not necessarily who your favorite was, but more so like, man, that interview went really well. I feel so good about that. Like, you just feel good about it.
hmm Um, I would say, actually, harkening back to the most recent FanFest, I really enjoyed, and I thought it went very well, was the interview with Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he got into some depth, and I was able to spend some a little bit more time with him than I had anticipated, and it was a really great experience there. Um, One of, I'm not going to say it was my favorite, but I have to say it was absolute funniest that I have ever done, was an interview that I did at Beyond with Nick Gage. And uh, what people may not know, Ray was the camera guy. So he was always my camera guy at Beyond. So he was the one that was doing behind the camera, videotaping everything. So great footage was because of him. But this Nick was always so fun, and he did everything just like off the cuff, and he was so passionate and so intense. But this time he was overly passionate and overly intense, and he was so vulgar in that in the in the interview. that I didn't, I was absolutely speechless, and I'm usually not, I can usually like wrap it up. And I was just like, okay,
How do you
we
follow
couldn't,
that?
luckily it wasn't live because we couldn't even air it. I had to go to the promoter and I was like, I don't know if this is quite appropriate. And he's like, absolutely not. We cannot. But to this day, I have it. And every other word was the F bomb. And he was just, it was so crazy off the hook. But it was one of the best like promos that he had ever cut. But I was like, oh my gosh. So that was definitely one of my most memorable experiences as an interviewer for sure.
Nice. Wow. And when it comes to road stories, obviously most of it you keep it local. You're here in New England area, but any road stories or funny stories over the years, whether it be wrestling or music related?
Oh goodness. Um, I would say, well, one of them, we were on the way to a show down in Connecticut. It was a show that Anthony Green was putting on. It was a promotion that he was with at the time, and Gangrel was on it. So Gangrel was staying at our house, and we were in the car, we're going, and we were in these back roads. We didn't want to take the highway, so we were just like puttering through the back roads of Connecticut. And all of a sudden, we came across a tag sale, and Dave was like, "Stop, stop! We got to stop at the tag sale." And I'm like, "All right, we'll go tag sailing." So he's going to, and he's looking, and he found he found a goblet
Oh,
at the tag sale.
oh man,
And nobody knew at the tag sale who he was or what we were doing. But oh right, we were so, that was always one of the funny moments that we'll remember.
nice. When it comes to keepsakes, you said you have some fan fest flyers or posters. Any other keepsakes from your time in the wrestling business?
Yeah, I actually kept a lot of my announcing cards that I have. I have one actually from the hardcore match with Just Incredible, and he actually bled all over it. So I have that, which is kind of cool and kind of gross at the same
Yeah.
time. I have like kind of like press passes and things like that from different experiences. I kept a lot of the booking sheets that I had, and that stuff. It's just, little notes and things like that. And then a lot of the stuff, especially like the notes from Beyond, I had a lot of times I would be like, oh, I don't know what your Twitter handle is. Write this down, and then so I have a lot of different things from different notes from the wrestlers that are just kind of scribbled on those. So I have a lot of those as well.
So, double question here. What would you say is the most challenging part about being a musician and the most challenging part about being in the wrestling business in your role?
I would say the most challenging part that I found about the role in wrestling was being taken seriously. And by that I mean a lot of times and often, being a female in that role, you sometimes have to play the, like the dumb blonde gimmick, like, oh my gosh, and what people don't understand or wouldn't know anyway, but that there's a lot more behind the scenes that goes on. Yes, I'm just reading a cue card, but at the same time, there's a lot more that goes into it, and for what it's worth, there's a lot of very, very intelligent people who have a true passion for the business and for what they do, even though their characters or their gimmicks may not accentuate that. And I found so many smart people in this business beyond, honestly, beyond my experience in graduate school. It's like some of the people that I've met alongside the ring and in the ring are just absolutely incredible. Their minds are incredible. From a music standpoint, one of the hardest things for me in music is memorization. And I find it's very difficult for me. I have like almost 500 songs, so that's one of the things that I really struggle with. But it's something that I always practice, and like I always say, just practice makes perfect. You keep doing it, it'll eventually sink in.
Any particular memories in regards to um, basically making that transition from, you know, ring announcing on a smaller show to kind of getting to the top tier, like we said, beyond wrestling? So, everybody starts in the initial level and then they'll make it to the top, which you have in the New England scene. So, rubbing shoulders with other fellow announcers like Rich Palladino, another New England great. What was it like kind of, obviously you already knew of his work, meeting Rich for the first time and being able to kind of rub shoulders with him and gain some knowledge there?
Rich is one of those people who is a wealth of knowledge, and I honestly he's one of my role models and mentors. Even if he doesn't know it, he is. Um, and I learned so much about just different like linguistic things and different stylings and cadence from him. Um, you know, wrestling acumen that I didn't quite know, like the ins and outs, and he really did a great job of helping me learn what I needed to learn and kind of giving me the confidence that I needed. So he's an amazing mentor.
And in closing, what fast forward years from now, what would you say is your legacy? How do you want to be remembered?
Um, I would love to be remembered as somebody who's just hardworking and kind. That's a legacy I'd like to leave.
Plain and simple. And that's what matters, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Deana Rae, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time tonight. It's been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. For Deana Rae, I'm Joseph Bruen. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much, Deana.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.